And we're live on both Facebook and YouTube. I already know this video is going to be deemed advertiser unfriendly, but I don't monetize my videos anyway, so I'm good. So this video is entitled as it properly is, Bisexuality Isn't a Phase, Your Ignorance Is. Now, why do I label it this way? Let me ask you a question. If you're in the LGBT community and you're a gay man or lesbian, let me ask you this. Is being gay a phase? No, it's your sexual orientation. You're strictly attracted to the same sex. And if you're not a gay man or a lesbian woman, let me ask you this. Is being straight a phase? No, it's your sexual orientation. You're strictly attracted to the opposite sex. Now, let me ask you this question. What makes you think that being bisexual is a phase? Let that question sink in. Don't answer it. Just hear me out. For centuries, there's been these quote-unquote tests to find out if someone was gay. And what would normally happen? Somebody would be put in a psych ward because being gay, or worse, being transgender in the 1940s and even 1890s, you were considered a mental patient. But from the 19th century, late 19th century, and 20th century onward, psychologists figured out that people who don't necessarily aren't strictly attracted to the same and or opposite sex have always used the term bisexual, which in itself is a sexual orientation. So, while true, bisexuality isn't common, it isn't. Yeah, I'll concede to that argument. Yeah, it's not a common sexuality. You're either gay or straight in the world. Yes, that's true. But I think it was Bisexual Real Talk, a YouTube channel on here, and he was using these examples for actual representation here. Have you ever seen a redheaded male? Kind of like myself. Yeah. We represent 2.8% of the world's population, close to 3%. That is the number of bisexual men in the world. That's a very low number. But let's look at the percentage of bisexual women. Bisexual women is actually an increased number than bisexual men. Bisexual women, he used the example, have you ever seen Asian people? Have you ever seen an Asian person? They represent 5.5%, close to 6% of the world's population. Once again, a low number, but it's a higher number than bisexual men. So that represents percentage of bisexual women. Now, the number of bisexual people in the whole world is the same number of people who identify as Black or African American, and that's 14% of the world's population. These were the numbers he used and examples he used. And those numbers are correct. So you figure the entire world's population is 14% of bisexuals. With that being said, the 6% is represented by women and the 3% is represented by men. Once again, not a very common sexuality, but it's a sexuality. It's a sexual orientation. Now, while the straight community, the LGBT community, have complete opposing views on a lot of things like transgender rights, more so bathroom rights than anything. What else? sex relationship things and all that. Here's one thing where the LGBT community and the straight community have in common. They completely ignore the fact that bisexuals exist. Or they not necessarily ignore it, but they, how do I put it? They choose to think bisexuals are a figment of people's imagination. Yeah, because we just, we just dream up that we're like this way. No. Now, here's the thing. Going back, I'm adding on to the examples that the guy gave in his video. Well, yes, it's true. Bisexual men are a very low percentage of the male population that are bisexual. 86% of the rest of the world carry the red-headed gene. So that means 86% of the whole world, wherever you live, is bi-curious. Someone has either had a fantasy or tried sex or a relationship or even fantasized about it with what would be with the same sex or opposite sex. Meaning that there have been gay men, gay women, and straight women who have either tried or fantasized the idea of what it would be like to have sex or be in a relationship with the person of the same or opposite sex. That's bi-curious. Now, being bi-curious is a phase. Being bisexual is not. There's a difference right there. If someone came up to you and say, hey, I'm bi-curious, I would probably say, you just don't know who you're sexually attracted to. You haven't found out your true sexuality yet. I would say that because being bi-curious is not really sexuality. It's just, you're curious, but you really don't know what you like on a sexuality level. But if you like both genders, you're bisexual. If you honestly look at it and you say and you say, well, I prefer men more than women. Okay, you might be gay. But here's if anybody watching this is curious if they have bisexual tendencies. Let me tell you how you might find out. Have you ever had thoughts, like intimate thoughts or dreams about what it would be like if you were in a relationship with the same sex? If that's the case, sexual. That's just one of the main reasons how you might find out. Or here's another example. A lot of sex therapists have found out that if a person in a relationship has had a dream of a threesome of either being two males and a female or two females and a male, that's another sign that someone might be bisexual. Interesting what dreams can tell you, actually, especially if they're intimate or sexualized dreams. It's interesting what especially psychologists have found out. But so you have to understand something here. That when someone within the LGBT community, more specifically men, more than anyone, believe me, you see their comments on Facebook. I'm not even kidding. Go to on Facebook, you'll see more bisexual men who are belittled by masculine gay men. And when they say stuff like bisexuality is a phase, normally, I don't normally respond to those people. I don't. I just ignore them because they're being ignorant. But if a straight person or a straight male, masculine male says that, once again, I ignore the person because it's just ignorant to say that. if I ever do respond, I say stuff like this. The first thing I say back is, well, you're not really straight, you're gay. You're really gay, you're straight. I hit back at them with the same level of ignorance that they hit me with. And then they get upset at what I said, and I simply say, see, how does it feel for the shoe to be on the other foot? I actually had someone on Facebook block me for telling them that, but hey, it was worth it. I proved a point. Another thing I might say back is, okay, then if you think bisexuality is a phase, then you know, being gay is a phase, or being straight is a phase. And they say, no, this is who I am. I'm like thinking, well, this is who I am. And it makes them think. But the best way, if you're a bisexual man or woman and you're belittled by maybe a gay man or lesbian or straight man or straight woman, and they say, oh, well, it's just a phase, it means nothing. You know what you could tell them back? You could say, it means nothing, then why am I in a relationship with you? Yeah, there's a problem when there have been several issues with bisexual men and women being in relationships, and their partners, men and women alike, regardless of what sexual orientation they are. When their partner tells them, hey, I'm bisexual, they say, oh, that's just a phase. No, you're really straight or gay. That's when relationship problems start right there. Because when you're bisexual in a relationship, you have to be upfront with it. You can't disguise it. You have to be honest. You have to say, every now and then I might have fantasies of being with the opposite gender or the same gender, and you have to be open about it. You have to truly be open about it, because that's the only way there's going to be no trust problems. And when they say, well, oh, that's just a phase, normally you get hit back with saying, then, okay, then why am I in a relationship with you then? That's the most harsh way to hit back, but think about it. It drives home a point. See, there's this whole idea that people who are bisexual cheat, or they're not loyal, or they can't hold a relationship, which is totally goddamn wrong. They totally can. Believe me, if I'm ever in a relationship with someone, regardless if it's a man or woman, I'm loyal to them. I don't, ruin a relationship. I don't cheat. I think cheating is wrong. I really do. I think it's disgusting. If you're going to be in a relationship with someone, you have to be loyal. There's a trust. There's a bond there. And a long-lasting relationship, you have to build up trust. When in the first 6 months, the trust isn't always going to be there, and you know what, that's expected. Because a good long-lasting relationship, trust is kind of like money in a bank. It builds up over time, and that's a bad example, but it brings home a point. Well, it's not really a bad example, but you understand what I'm saying. You guys understand what I'm saying. But now, when you build up this trust, and when you're ready to admit to your partner, either straight male or gay male or woman, that you are bisexual, when you trust them enough to tell them that fact, and then they go berserk on you, time to leave the relationship or end it. Because the worst thing you could do is put yourself in a toxic relationship. And that's the other thing right there. Let's talk about suicide rates. Now, suicide is a horrible thing, very horrible thing. It's the most tragic thing anybody could conclude is that they have to kill themselves to make everyone else happy. It's the most tragic thing anybody could think of. But let's look at the numbers here. Bisexual men and women are more likely to commit suicide than gay men and women, because bisexual men and women are always belittled or always told that they're invalid, while gay men and women, on the other hand, are always validated. Bisexual men and women always feel the need, we always feel the need to validate ourselves, because we always feel like we're being made not to exist. And think about what that does on the human psyche. It drives you crazy when you always feel the need to validate yourself, when you always feel the need to be validated, when no one accepts you at all for who you are. It messes you up. It makes you go into the spiral of depression. And for some people, you know, they could be clinically depressed and not know it, but yet being always invalidated it puts you in a spiral to a no end. And there's stages of depression. I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know all the stages offhand, but I've seen several YouTubers who have depression talk about the stages of depression. And the stages 1 and 2 of depression are very common. You know, everyone has depression stages 1 and 2, which is, you know, grieving, you know, moodiness, you know, very common traits. Every person has that. But this is where, when someone's diagnosed with depression, this is where it gets serious. Stages 3 and 4 are shutting yourself in mentally and closing everyone out mentally. Shutting yourself in is basically bottling up your dark thoughts or your suicide thoughts in. You like never expressing them, never talking to anybody, you like bottling them in. Shutting everyone else out is like ignoring people for months on end. That's stages 3 and 4. You know, antidepressants or whatever psychologists give to their patients for this like form of clinical depression. It's not as bad. It's manageable, but it's not bad. It's not as bad, but it's manageable. You know, that could cure it up. It could keep those thoughts at bay. It could help people not to bottle those feelings inside. But stages 5 and 6, this is where attempted suicide comes in. And this is real bad clinical depression. Real bad clinical depression. And this is where not even depression medicine always helps. This is where people need all the support in the world that they could get from friends, family, even their neighbors, if they have to. See, here's the thing. That's just a brief overview of the stages of depression. And bisexual men and women are more likely to attempt suicide after trying for people to see them as validated people. And And you have to understand that suicide, especially among bisexual men and women, is a very high number. And I got that from RJ, the not Adam. Another YouTuber who's very well informed on suicide rates within the LGBT community. It's unfortunately true, though. At first, when he talked about it, I didn't really believe him, and so I looked up the numbers myself, but it's true. Bisexual men and women are more likely to attempt or succeed at suicide than anybody else within the LGBT community. Because we're in a day and age where if you're lesbian, gay, or transgender, you're going to be validated. But if you're bisexual, they're still not validated. We have to keep proving ourselves. And it just gets to you on a mental level. Now, luckily, I don't have that problem, but there are other bisexual men and women that do. And a final thing I do want to bring up is that ignorance towards bisexual people within the LGBT community and out of the LGBT community is very much real, and it can be curbed, but it won't ever stop. There's going to be gay men and women and straight men and women that are always going to try to invalidate bisexual men and women. There's always going to be that group of people that are going to be purposely trying to invalidate bisexual men and women on purpose. Now, I'm not saying that everyone does it. Of course, not everyone does it. But there are a select group of those who do. And we all know who they are. And so I'll repeat the title of this video again, or this live stream again, however you want to phrase it. But it's true. Bisexuality isn't a phase. Your ignorance is. Once you find out what bisexuality is, or the original term, polyamorous, pansexuality, once you find out what these terms are, you realize that it isn't a phase, it's sexual orientation. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you realize something, that there's more options than gay or straight. There's more attraction than to the same sex or opposite sex. Sometimes the more is the merrier for some people. See ya.